Where do you want to start?
I don't know.
Is this your first time being interviewed?
Yeah, I did a podcast, but I was hiding in my room. Beginning
What was the podcast about?
It was about, well, from when I started my journey here to Pennsylvania, so
Okay.
I guess that's kind of a good place.
How'd you start your journey? Tell me about that. How'd you get to Pennsylvania?
I was in my 20s when I received a phone call from my cousin Monique, who lives out here in Oxford. And she pretty much brought up some things that happened in our past to the both of us by a relative. Some inappropriate things happened to she and I when we were little, and I did as best I could to kind of suppress that. And when she brought it up, all the surge of everything that happened came back, obviously. And I came here to talk to her because we were planning to approach, at least say something to the person who did it. And that's how I got here, yeah.
Did you end up working out that issue? Or?
Yeah, I ended up working it out. I said what I needed to say, and I knew that the potential for that relationship to end was there. So, I mean, it is, and unfortunately, that's how it went. But for me, it needed to say something. You know what I mean? Like that was the most important part.
That must have been a tough step in your life to go from something. Where were you before then?
I was living in California at that time.
Okay.
I left Hawaii, moved to California.
Oh, okay. Hawaii, California, Pennsylvania.
Which was already hard as it was. I was in culture shock to begin with, but.
So she gave you the call, and then that's what brought you out.
Because what the biggest struggle was I thought it was someone else.
Oh, okay.
And then as we started to talk about it, the memory came back, and it ended up being somebody closer to me. And that was difficult to deal with.
Yeah, this is an issue that you could have worked out with yourself? You didn't have to go and get any other counseling, or?
I did end up going to some counseling and getting some,
Jumping ahead then,
fast
so
forward.
you're still here.
Mm-hmm.
So what kept you here then, and how'd you get to stay
So,
in Lancaster?
Once I was able to deal with that part of my life, and moving out here wasn't really planned. I had a duffel bag, and that was pretty much it. And I obviously wasn't going to go back to Hawaii because I was dealing with that situation with my cousin. And I moved to California with someone that I was seeing, and that didn't work out. So I didn't want to go back there either. So I was pretty much stuck here with just a bag full of clothes, and I got a job, and it was, like I said, like because it ended up being somebody closer to me than I thought it was, I had a really hard time coping with that, and ended up getting mixed up with some people that I probably shouldn't have. And I started taking whatever pills I could take and doing whatever drug I could do to suppress that issue, and found myself attempting suicide. And I ended up having to be put away for a little bit. And while I was there, my roommate's son committed suicide the week prior to me and my attempt. So she was already dealing with a lot to begin with. And so when I came out, all of my things were packed up and left on the street. And she basically was like, I just lost my son. I can't afford to lose one of my best friends either. So she was like, I just can't deal with it right now. That being said, I had nowhere else to go, and because of my behavior at the time, like my cousin wasn't going to take me in either. So I ended up homeless at the Mission for quite some time. And that's where my second attempt at suicide had taken place.
So what brought you out of that then?
I don't know. Maybe it was a collection of everything that I attempted to learn as coping mechanisms prior to that. Maybe it just finally clicked at one point. But I remember the day before, I texted all my family and friends that I just wanted to tell them that I loved them because that this wasn't the life that I expected to live for myself. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't. I was having a really hard time, and then I was doing things that I never thought that I would, like drugs, and I was just in a really tough place, and I didn't know how to get out of that. So I had, at the time, which was a poor decision, that seemed to be my only escape. And for some reason, and thank God for that, the next morning it was so different. I woke up and it was just, I don't know, maybe.
Something clicked,
Something clicked. And it was just, and it was a funny story because that morning I was like, you know what, it's going to be different today. And I said I was going to go get a newspaper. I was going to walk to the McDonald's on the corner, get a cup of coffee and a newspaper to find a job. And a friend of mine just so happened to be driving past as I was walking up. She ended up working at Lux.
Oh, okay.
And she said, come in and get a haircut so you can at least look presentable, because I was looking a mess. And she cut my hair for free, and as I was in the chair getting ready to leave, the owner came up to me and asked me if I was still working where I wasn't before, and I wasn't, and so she offered me a job pretty much on the spot.
It's tough, you know, you're not the only one that has to go through these issues as well. So, I applaud you for having the strength to move on past that. So let's talk about you're in the city and here comes your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you meet your friend?
I met her through the place that I was working prior to Lux.
Oh, okay.
I helped a business, Envy Studio, and that's where my first job here was.
Okay. So she grabbed you, gave you a haircut, said, hey, let's get your stuff together
basically,
here. Cool.
Yeah, and so that kind of pushed me on the right path.
Now, are you a hairstylist or?
Aesthetics, I do aesthetics, yeah, skincare,
okay.
waxing.
How'd you get into that?
A friend of mine in college, his mother owned a salon and pretty much offered me a free apprenticeship. So I took it because I was struggling.
Yeah.
As most college kids are. Yeah.
Where was that at?
In Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. I didn't leave Hawaii until I was in my early 20s.
Okay. Yeah, what year did you get here to Lancaster?
I've been here for 7 years now.
Okay.
So 2012.
And how long have you worked at Lux before you?
6 years.
And now what are you doing? You're here.
Now I'm here.
Yeah, what is this?
I am starting my own business.
Okay.
With my business partner Matt Schreck. He's a barber, so we're starting a barber shop and a beauty bar where we do both men and women's services.
7 years ago, did you see yourself?
No, I know this is kind of emotional for good reasons, but that or I'm just a baby.
How old are you now?
I always forget. I'll be 35 this year.
Okay. I forget how old I am too.
I just keep telling people the wrong age, that's why. I don't know. I'll be 35 this year.
Okay. Where'd you get your interest in
I had no interest in it, to be
Really?
honest. Yeah, I was going to school for business management. One of my clients that, while I was doing the apprenticeship for skin, kept offering me a job at a cosmetic company. And finally she gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I ended up taking it and quitting my 2 other jobs because I was making way more money doing that. And as I started to progress with that job, the more and more I fell in love with it. So.
Now, have you found your work kind of therapeutic to help you through some of the things?
It is, I think, for the most part, it is that kind of like the ability to make someone feel better is kind of what I've lost myself in, especially being in the position that I've been in for such a long time, that's the most rewarding part. You know.
The ability to make someone else feel better makes you feel better as
Absolutely,
well.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself? I mean, that's a big transition from 7 years ago till now.
I know, I don't know. to be honest, and this is a good place to start, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I'm just at a place in my life where I am ready to take on new challenges. I mean, I've already been homeless and with nothing and no one, and I was able to make it through that. So I think this is just an opportunity to push myself to become who I always imagined I would be, you know.
Do you have advice or any words of wisdom to pass on to people who would be in a similar situation that you were in 7 years ago, homeless, maybe on drugs?
I think one of the biggest things is maybe shed your pride a little bit, because I wish that more than anything I had the voice to ask for help, because
Okay.
I think that's where my struggle lied personally. I think with things like that and drug abuse or molestation, or that it becomes such a part of your identity when you're keeping it from others for so long. It becomes a part of you when you're hiding that. It becomes embarrassing, you become ashamed of yourself, and slowly you kind of back yourself into a corner where you don't know how to reach out. And I think that's the best advice, is to shed your ego, and it's okay to ask for help.